With that in mind, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Jasmine Brown. Dr. Jasmine, Dr. Jasmine Jackson. Dr. Jasmine Jackson is the co-executive director of the National Black Food and Justice Alliance. Dr. Jazz is an applied food systems research and policy-based specialist. She partners with academic research team, anchor institutions, and philanthropic foundations, and community-based organizations to identify root causes of and develop innovative solutions to food system challenges. As a New Orleans native and farmer, she has developed a unique perspective when it comes to food and the effects that it has on communities. Dr. Jazz believes that your zip code should not determine your life expectancy, and building relationships is essential to creating a sustainable and just food system. Without further ado, the amazing Dr. Jackson.
Thank you so much. Wow. This is just overly amazing. Let me go ahead and start sharing my screen so you all can see this beautiful presentation. See that I got some assistance with. Here we are. I'll start it from the beginning. I'm going to take my breath on that. It's just such an honor and privilege to be speaking with you all today. I always want to give thanks first to God for directing my path and the ancestors for aligning my vision and my support system for ensuring I see it through. And thank you, Jada, for that warm introduction. I would also like to express gratitude to Marsha and the Maternal Child Health, Nutrition, Leadership Education, and Training Program at the University of Tennessee for inviting me to speak. As the co-executive director of the National Black Food and Justice Alliance, I'm deeply humbled by the recognition extended to me and my organization. It is a testament to the collective efforts being made in addressing the fundamental issues of food access and affordability that disproportionately impact Black communities. I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to address the first pillar of the Biden and Harris administration national strategy on hunger, nutrition, and health. And I'm excited that this is going to focus on improving food access and affordability. This pillar is so crucial in ensuring that all individuals, regardless of their background, have access to nutritious food that promotes their overall health and well-being. I'll share some strategies and case studies to inspire community organizers and farmers and universities to collaborate and create a framework of community self-governance for building local and regional food systems. Additionally, I will discuss the Alliance's 2023 Farm Bill demands, which align with our goals of Black food sovereignty and liberation. And finally, I will conclude with a call to action for all of you, our audience members, to join us in this important work. So today we've gathered not just as professionals and experts, but as champions of justice and equity. We've come together to explore how we can forge partnerships and create community-based actions to achieve food sovereignty in Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. It's imperative that we identify and overcome the barriers that have perpetuated food insecurity and its adverse consequences on the health of mothers, children, and families. We cannot ignore the harsh reality that historically underserved groups have endured systemic disadvantages that have undermined their access to nutritious food. We must acknowledge the critical work that each of us are already engaged in to remove these barriers that are related to hunger, nutrition, and health. Whether you're a maternal and child health and public health professional, or an extension specialist or agent, whether you're a food bank or food pantry staff, an anti-hunger advocate, a registered dietitian or nutritionist. If you're a community health education specialist, maybe a student, a researcher, or a community member, our collective efforts are vital. And to dismantle these inhumane barriers, we must cultivate collaborations between community organizations, farmers, and universities. By harnessing the power of these partnerships, we can build a robust and sustainable system that ensures everyone has the access to healthy and affordable food. So as we engage in this dialogue, it's crucial to understand this broader context which our work is situated in. Hunger, nutrition, and health, they're not isolated issues. They're intricately interconnected, and their well-being of our communities is contingent upon our ability to address food access and affordability. When individuals face limited options and lack the resources to feed themselves and their families, the consequences ripple through every aspect of our lives. Our communities are facing unprecedented challenges, and it is imperative that we address these systemic barriers to create an environment where every individual can thrive. So now that I framed where we are, I want to share a little bit about myself. So feel free to call me Dr. Jazz. I am a New Orleans Ninth Ward native, and I come from a long line of New Orleanians, and they are caregivers and hard workers. I attended New Orleans Public Schools and Xavier University and the Louisiana State University, LSU, and then graduated from the University of New Orleans for my entire undergraduate career. But I recently moved back home to New Orleans after spending 6 years in Alabama. There, I received my master's in community planning from Auburn University and a PhD in integrative public policy and development from the illustrious Tuskegee University. But my research focused on local food systems and how they created community and economic development. And personally, I feel that your life expectancy should not be determined by your zip code. I've lived and worked in the Ninth Ward and witnessed firsthand food disparities, and communities were constantly faced with the challenges that were stemmed from systemic food apartheid, in particular, the lack of access to affordable and fresh produce.
Dr. Jazz,
Yes.
I'm sorry. I think we're having trouble. Are you advancing your slides? We're not seeing them.
Are you
There
able
we
to-
go.
Sorry about that. I completely
No,
forgot.
it's okay. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I appreciate the interruption. But I'll pause now actually to give, that's a picture of me, but I really want to share about Dara Cooper, our co-founder and former executive director. She helped us define food apartheid, and I'd love to share that definition. And it's not on slide, so I'll just read it. You can find it in our Black food directory on our website. But food apartheid, the systemic destruction of Black self-determination to control our food, which is including land, resource theft, and discrimination. A hypersaturation of destructive foods and predatory marketing, and a blatantly discriminatory corporate controlled food system that results in our community suffering from some of the highest rates of heart disease and diabetes of all times. And many tend to use the term food deserts. However, food apartheid is much more accurate representation of the structural inequities that have been perpetuated through our current system. So in case you don't already use the term, I definitely encourage you to adopt food apartheid. But myself, I personally want to make a difference in the rebuilding efforts in my community. As I mentioned, I'm from New Orleans, so I decided to move to Alabama to pursue my graduate studies. And during my time in Alabama, I had the pleasure of being a community garden project coordinator, and that was actually in Tuskegee through the AmeriCorps Vista program. And I quickly learned that just like the residents in my hometown in the Ninth Ward, community members in Macon County, Alabama shared similar sentiments in living in a state of food apartheid. So then throughout my studies in Auburn, there was just a recurring reference to policies and the amount of power the people who created them had, whether that power was good or bad, and the development of the success of a community. And that realization of the power, it actually led me to the PhD program at Tuskegee. And since then, I have been deeply engaged in food and land work in all aspects of my life. So much, I married a 5th-generation farmer and Tuskegee native, Terrence Jackson, last year. So now I'll share some about the National Black Food and Justice Alliance. But did I say how honored I am to address this important topic of improving food access and affordability, especially in historically underserved communities? So as the co-executive director of the National Black Food and Justice Alliance, which I'll keep referring to as the Alliance because that's a lot, but I am passionate about building partnerships and advocating for food sovereignty. So a little bit about the Alliance. We understand our work, it wouldn't be possible without the cooperative models that have been set forth by the resilient Black farming communities in the late 19th century and the Black power movements of the 1960s. A legacy of Black people audacious enough to confront violence with organization. A legacy that breathes life into our current movements, fighting to protect our Black bodies from police brutality and its intersections. And we recognize the food system as one of those intersections. And harm in the wake of Michael Brown's murder in 2014, the Alliance was established. And now we're a coalition of over 50 Black-led organizations to develop Black leadership, support Black communities, organize for self-determination, and build institutions for Black food sovereignty and liberation. We represent hundreds of urban and rural farmers, organizers, and land stewards that are based nationwide, working together towards intergenerational, urban, rural, and movement to map and assess and train and deepen the organizing and institution building, and also advocacy work, protecting Black land towards food sovereignty. So I keep saying sovereignty, and I love giving definitions. So don't forget to check out our website with our terms for Black food justice. But our view of sovereignty actually encompasses our mission and vision. And we feel sovereignty is the ultimate goal, but it cannot be achieved without confronting the question of governance. So we work to ensure that Black people not only have the right, but the ability to control our food through the means, but not limited to, production and distribution. The governance of our food systems must be rooted in the right to culturally appropriate food that's produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and the right to define our own food and agricultural systems. But even in naming our rights, we know we will not enjoy any of them, which we will not assert through action. So shifting from an exclusively rights-based framework to a framework of governance and community power, it centers the needs of those working and consuming at all points of the food chain over the demands of corporations and markets. And we believe we can achieve sovereignty through democratic, people-centered forms of governance. And the way that we do this work is through organizing people, building institutions, and amplifying culture. We haven't been around too long, so it's a quick timeline of the Alliance. We started in 2015, and recently in 2023, launched our center, our inaugural Center for Agroecology at the Florida Agriculture and Mechanic University in Tallahassee. So excited to see the growth so far, and really thrilled to be on board. And I'll share this next part about, I already stated a little bit how we got to become who we are. And this is just a problem statement on things that members created together, and just situating where we are in the world right now and why we need to do the things that we're doing, because we know that we're in a crisis moment and this is not something that we can wait. So how we do that work is really quick on through self-determining food economies and also Black land and power. And in the self-determining food economy space, we are developing the pipeline of local and regional supply chain actors. We overall want to increase the capacity of Black sustainable food systems infrastructure, and that includes our supply chain work and cooperative retail work. And our overall goal is to weaken the impacts and dependency of the industrial and corporate agricultural system. So it looks like a lot of different things, but it's exciting work together. But we can't do any of that without the land. And that's where we focus on Black land and power to diminish the negative impact of land loss and land exploitation in Black communities, and recover the land for community-controlled regenerative agriculture. And our goal for the next 5 years is excitingly to regain stewardship of 3,000 acres of land. So we are going to continue building our local coalitions and centering our land reform and defense practices, and really focus on that protection, recovery, and retention. And I want to share now some practical solutions together that we can pave toward a just food system. We can identify pathways to build local and regional food systems that empower communities and foster self-reliance. We can do this by centering the voices and needs of the communities we serve. We can create resilient and inclusive models that drive lasting change. And we can do this by responsibly collaborating with community organizations, farmers, and universities to secure funding for research, training, and infrastructure development that's aimed at improving food sovereignty. And to foster these partnerships, we need to cultivate trust, because we have to responsibly collaborate, and we have to trust and respect and have some shared goals, not necessarily one-sided. But community organizations can engage with local farmers to establish direct farm to community connections, promoting locally sourced and culturally relevant food. Universities can provide technical expertise, research support, and resources to strengthen these partnerships and develop sustainable food systems. So one way that I know a university is working with one of our partners in Detroit, the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network. They've been around since actually before 2007, but since 2007, they've been represented by the University of Michigan's law schools. They have a community and economic development clinic, and they've been assisting in the opening of this amazing space. So it's going to be a food co-op, and it'll be opening in spring 2024. But this is just an example of how community organizations can establish gardens and farmers markets and prioritize local produce and support Black farmers. So really meeting people where they are and providing the resources. Detroit also, they have a D-Town farm that's connected with this, the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network. And it's a 7-acre farm that produces fresh produce and nutritious food for the community. And it's exciting to see how they're continuing to be able to provide this fresh produce. The store will be opening on the main street, and I'm really excited that my mentor and also co-founder of the National Black Food and Justice Alliance has worked so long to ensure that this is developed and in place for his community. I wanted to also share another case study here in my area in New Orleans, some success that I've been witnessing with the New Orleans Food Policy Action Council, which is an example of how farm to institution can really be fruitful in creating this opportunity of moving food sovereignty to fruition. So there was a case study actually done by the New Orleans Food Policy Action Council on farm to institution and the feasibility. And they had some recommendations that are very relatable for any city or organization to take part in. And that's to continue to build fair and equitable procurement systems that prioritizes historically marginalized growers, have food service management companies to prioritize local procurement through internal policies, institutions to value an equitable and local food sourcing system, and policies that encourage and support local procurement, farm to institution programming. The study recommended these things, and I know that it's like the recommendations are nice, but seeing the implementation is where we really have to put our muscle to it. And I remember from my experience in Tuskegee and wanting to sell to the university's cafe and how many barriers there were in place about the bids needing and the travel miles, and none of that took in consideration local farmers and the value that their produce would bring. So excited about some possibility for people to implement, but also more of a success story in New Orleans through a Greener New Orleans campaign led by the New Orleans Food Policy Action Council and Sprout NOLA, along with the Growers Alliance of New Orleans. Recently, earlier this month, actually got legislation passed in the city government to increase urban agriculture access and through some platforms, specifically through lease changes. Before, there was only 1 year at a time where you can lease an open lot, knowing how long it takes to build up soil, definitely needing some longer leases and guarantees to be on land than that. There's also an issue with getting agricultural water meters installed. As a farmer, the water comes in and then goes back into the ground, but people in New Orleans were being charged for sewage, and that's unfortunate and definitely a barrier. So there's a policy hopefully being in place for that, along with being cited for blight, although it'll just be cover crops and above the limit for how tall your grass can be. So there's definitely some policy and people who are agriculture related needing to be in the places that are making these code enforcements. So we've excited to also put into this platform to appoint an urban agriculture liaison position that actually speaks and talks across city government along with farmers, as we know how difficult that can be. So excited to share some real-time opportunities and successes of communities collectively working together to build in some strategies. So I want to share now more about how we can build some self-determination, and that's through the community self-governance. And this is pivotal in building resilient and sustainable local and regional food systems. By engaging community members in decision-making processes, we can ensure that voices and needs are heard and respected. We can prioritize culturally appropriate food systems that celebrate traditional food ways, culinary practices, and cultural heritage by promoting community well-being and preserving cultural identities. Culture is so important to me, being a New Orleanian and knowing how inclusive it needs to be in our policies and city planning. And we need to promote all of these inclusive decision-making processes that actually involve community members, farmers, and academic partners in shaping these policies and programs that are related to land use, agricultural practices, and food system development. We also can evaluate and monitor. I know how many academics and funders need those evaluations, but there's impact of community self-governance initiatives on local and regional food systems. These indicators can be increased food sovereignty, economic empowerment, improved health outcomes, and reduced environmental impact. Also, we can continue supporting cooperatives and community-led initiatives, just like the Detroit People's Food Co-op I mentioned that'll be opening in the spring. They're creating economic opportunities that foster self-reliance. Also, the Federation of Southern Cooperatives and Land Assistance Fund, that's been instrumental in providing technical assistance and financial support to Black farmers, enabling them to establish cooperative enterprises and gain greater control over their economic destinies. Some more particular case studies that I know and witnessed from some real-time success. One of our members at the National Black Food and Justice Alliance, the Black Oak Center for Sustainable Renewable Living. It's located in Pembroke, Illinois, right outside of Chicago, maybe about 90 miles. And it's a shining example of community self-governance in action. They've established a network of small farmers, community gardens, and training programs that emphasize regenerative agricultural practices. There's a 40-acre eco-campus, and their goal is to restore 1,000 acres of farmland for Black land stewardship. And they know by taking control of their food system, the community has improved access to nutritious food and created economic opportunities, specifically through their Healthy Food Hub market, which continues to introduce a mobile market, hopefully this fall. It is a moving piece and exciting to see and bear witness to an amazing organization doing work in a rural community right in Illinois. Also a case study that is not necessarily a member of the National Black Food and Justice Alliance, but also a worker cooperative that community owned. This community, Mandela Marketplace, they have pioneered a community-driven approach to food access. So they're engaging residents in decision-making processes, developing neighborhood grocery stores, and supporting local farmers and entrepreneurs. And through their efforts, they revitalize the local food system and empower the community to shape their own future. So I'm excited to continue to share success stories. And I know there are multiple cooperatives in the Alliance that are already with their storefronts or in the process of building their stores. So really excited to see this in real time, to see the shift in food sovereignty. And speaking of the case studies that have highlighted those powers of the community-based action to transform food systems, we have an opportunity as well. So to further our mission of equitable food access, the National Black Food and Justice Alliance has developed a set of demands for our 2023 Farm Bill. And we recognize the Farm Bill as a crucial piece of legislation, and it impacts our ability for our communities to access and feed ourselves. We have identified 4 key demands for the 2023 Farm Bill that aligns with our goals of Black food sovereignty and liberation. And these demands encompass key policy changes that are significantly impact the lives of Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities and advance our collective goals. So I'll present these demands and discuss their importance in achieving them, a just and equitable food system. Our first demand is to improve our opportunities for startup expansion of local and self-reliant food economies. And this includes implementing the Justice for Black Farmers Act, which I'm excited to report that Dara Cooper, our former and founding executive director, worked with Senator Booker and Senator Warner's staff to work with alliance members and other partners like HEAL to actually draft the Justice for Black Farmers Act. We can see the requests actually written in the legislation, and this act provides non-monetary equitable relief for Black farmers. We're also requesting to simplify grant applications and funding processes. I'm sure you are well aware of the time and dedication that it takes to receive funding for the important work that we're doing. But we're also requesting in the Farm Bill to support urban agriculture programs and research, as I showed earlier, how beneficial urban agriculture can be in creating food sovereignty. And also just wanting to be sure that there are additional programs that receive more funding for equal access for Black farmers and entrepreneurs, and all those that qualify, like the Farmer Promotion Program, the Farmers Market Promotion Program, and streamlining those processes to remove the barriers that'll actually support the growth of our local food economies. Our second demand is to invest in Black food sovereignty and an emerging Black food movement. And we must recognize the support for Black grassroots formations that are organizing for food sovereignty in Black communities. Additionally, we must restore, protect, and invest in Black land stewardship to ensure viable land for generations to come. Our third demand for the Farm Bill is to include climate regenerative practices and programs as priorities. And we must divest from practices that conflict with restorative and regenerative land practices, and invest in regenerative agriculture practices and community-based solutions that promote climate mitigation and adaptation. The summary of our final demand is just to increase access for food assistance for Black and Brown communities who face crises of hunger and malnutrition. And this requires removing the existing barriers for food assistance programs, including the barriers that are faced by food workers, migrant workers, and meat packers. We also need to increase awareness and outreach around food assistance programs and ease the EBT point of sale for producers and cooperatives. SNAP benefits should be accepted on day one that grocery store cooperatives are open. You can find more of our demands, more ways that you can connect online. We have our National Black Food and Justice Alliance. Please do visit. But I just want to be sure that now more than ever is the time that we have to come together as a collective force to advocate for these demands of the 2023 Farm Bill. We cannot afford to let this opportunity pass us by. We must mobilize our networks, engage with policymakers, and amplify the voices of those most affected by food insecurity and systemic inequalities. I urge each and every one of you to join the National Black Food and Justice Alliance in our fight for a just and equitable food system. Together, we can build partnerships, create change, and pave the way for a future where food access and affordability are not luxuries, but inherent rights for all. In conclusion, I want to express my gratitude to each and every one of you for your dedication and commitment to this cause. By coming together today, we affirm our shared vision of a future where no mother or child goes hungry, where nutrition is not a privilege, but a fundamental right. Our collective efforts will shape a landscape where equity, justice, and nourishment are inseparable. Thank you so much for your attention. I look forward to hearing the remaining speakers as they talk about the other pillars and all of the transformative work we will accomplish together. Let us empower all our communities to have equal access, healthy and affordable food, ensuring a brighter and healthy future for generations to come. Here's our information. If you'd like to connect with us on social media, we're on Instagram and the things at Black Food Justice. You can email us at info@blackfoodjustice.org and visit our website, as I mentioned before, the Farm Bill demands, the Black Food Term Directory, All of those things, along with the Black Food Map, are resources that are on our website. But please note, the Alliance is actually closed on June 28th through July 9th in observance of our Trisha Hershey Summer Wellness Break. And Trisha Hershey's Rest is Resistance is a manifesto, and it reminds us that our commitment to this work does not have to come at the expense of our health and our well-being. In fact, to upend white supremacy and anti-Blackness as a standard, we must be in the practice of liberating ourselves too. So as an organization, we'll be disconnected from email, phone, socials. So please do reach out. And remember, survival is not the end goal for liberation. We must thrive and we must rest. That's from Trisha Hershey. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Jazz, so much for that wonderful presentation. So now we are going to begin our Q&A session. So our first question is Jasmine and the Alliance finding good partners in North Carolina?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're partners, Diane. Thank you so much for the question. One of our leadership and founding members, Mama Savvy Horn with Land Loss Prevention, is in North Carolina along with Operation Spring Plant. So those are our partners or members in North Carolina, along with a few others. But I'd love to find out more information about good food in North Carolina.
Thank you. I hope you guys make some good connections there. So another question is, what can people do in their community to support Black farmers?
Yeah. Connect with them. Each farmer has different needs for sure, but I encourage you to build a relationship with your farmer. I love, I highly say this all the time. Ben Burkett is my favorite farmer. He's in Petal, Mississippi with Indian Springs Cooperative, and they come to New Orleans for farmers markets every week. And it's really important for me. I'm missing them this week on the market through my Zoom calls, but it's very important for me to continue to support Mr. Burkett and connect them with opportunities that I know, and also advocate for farmers to be institutional partners. So not just contracts with people, but also where our hospitals and our schools are purchasing food to ensure that we're making those connections.
Amazing. So sort of to piggyback off of that question, we have a question from someone who's anonymous. It says, I love that what you are doing. Do you see an area for an RDN within your area of work?
Is RD in rural development?
Oh, my apologies. A registered dietitian, nutritionist. Yes.
Look at the acronyms. I would love to be connected. I'm not sure of the work that's already happening. I know Xavier University is working on a food policy advocacy piece, but if there is registered dietary nutritionists in the area that would like to connect with farmers, and I know that there was a prescription program that was going on before where especially elders were able to receive free produce via prescription. So if that's something that registered dietitians RDNs can provide, or that connection, I would encourage, us to collaborate and, see how advocacy efforts can combine.
Yeah, there's acronyms everywhere and they just keep building on each other. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay, so another question is from Diane, and they say, how is the Alliance working and partnering with other Black food sovereignty leaders like Karen Washington, etc.?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question, Diane. These questions have been very thought-provoking. Karen Washington is actually on the board of one of our member organizations, the Black Farmer Fund. So we are connected, and I know that she was a part of the inaugural collaboration of what the Alliance is. This is a part of many ideas and people coming together. So this is nothing by any means my own doing or one person. So definitely connected with Karen and partnering with other organizations. We have over 50, almost 60 members now that are all throughout the country, but always looking to connect with others. And our membership process, in case you went to our website, will be opening hopefully later this year. We're taking some time to strategize internally.
So excited to see the growth of this. I'm very excited for you guys.
Thank you. I'm so excited as well, Jada. It's just amazing to witness and watch history in real time.
Amazing. Okay, so we have another question that says, what are your strategies to reclaim land?
Yeah, that's amazing question. So I would love for my counterpart, Kenya, who's our Black Land and Power Director, to be on the share. But currently through the Alliance, we have the Resource Commons Council that just launched last year, and it's member-led, and they're elected members of the Alliance to govern a set of funds. And I'll definitely share the press release that over $750,000 went to additional members of the Alliance that applied to this fund to actually either get infrastructure, rematriate land, or purchase additional land. So we have been working collectively on strategies that are including technical assistance, loans, and grants that are non-extractive. That's one of our governing bodies that we're doing to preserve and reclaim and protect land. We're also looking, saying this into the universe because we have been speaking this out, for an heirs property cohort, where heirs property, when you don't have a clear title in your family and there are multiple heirs that are in ownership and not able to pass it, or provide any equity or even a farm number, unless there's, the majority of the heirs are signed. We're looking for a cohort that actually clears the title of 5 to 10 families a year. So we'll look to start that really soon. We've been putting it out as something that our members have been requesting. And I know in my family, and also Kenya, who leads the work, we have similar situations that, it's going to go for members, but it's like, well, this is a resource more people should have and know about. So those are two of our ways that we're doing it as the Alliance, but we're also open to accepting land. We have been listening and learning through our first initial process of getting our feet wet in some land ownership, co-ownership strategies, where we're received an opportunity to steward 106 acres in Georgia, but they were still working out some finalizing pieces, but this came to us with debt that the funders ended up clearing the debt. So it is free, but it has farm animals, lodging, where we're having retreats and training for more land stewards. So we're working on all fronts for reclaiming land. So thank you again for that question.
It's very important that this land is reclaimed and not sort of, I guess, sold back, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I say stolen. I know people struggle, but over 15 to 19 million acres have been stolen from Black people through the processes of USDA, not clear title, companies and cities just auctioning off land for people not paying taxes or not even knowing that their deeds are, theirs. So really excited to be, reversing that history and rematriating some of that.
Yes, thank you for bringing that to light for everyone. So we have another question, and it says, how does one get involved in advocacy?
Yeah, that is so important. As the Alliance, we definitely want people to connect with their local organization. We feel that building on the ground where we are to make a difference in our community is the first option. So do an Instagram or Google search. I know that there's a local community doing some advocacy work. There is all kinds of ways, especially in the Farm Bill, to be right in the heart of advocacy right now, as that's one of the hot topics. But I definitely suggest you to search around, ask people who are in health policy or nutrition if they are working with any legislators. But you also can always schedule a meeting with your legislator. And it may not be them. Don't worry, it's their staff. They write the bills. They write the responses. Like, I talk to them all the time. Been to DC, which is not actually as scary as I imagined. It is very cool to be in the big, ceilings and buildings, to just be there to speak with people that we pay to do this work for us. So I say, as a new advocate or emerging advocate or whatever, I never like to call myself an expert, but just get your foot wet in it and start with the organization. I don't always suggest going on your own. There are lots of resources out there. I know Heal Food Alliance is one partner of ours that are deep into the advocacy work. It's their first farm bill and they're doing amazing. I'm also working with the Union of Concerned Scientists. These are all national organizations that may have a member in your area. So go even on our website at the National Black Food and Justice Alliance and see if any of these members are nearby you that you may want to link up and see what kind of advocacy work you can do.
Thank you. I'm excited to see more advocates for the Alliance coming up soon.
Thank you.
And sort of piggybacking, oh, sorry.
I was just saying that was a great question.
Sort of piggybacking off of local organizations, are you guys already connected to the Louisiana WIC program? And they were wondering specifically if there's anything that can be coordinated with WIC and local farmers using WIC farmers benefits.
Excuse me. Earlier, I mentioned the New Orleans Food Policy Action Council, which I know may or may not be connected with the WIC program in Louisiana, but I do have a request or a suggestion for people that are already in the work. As like I mentioned, the Alliance, we're on a national scale and allow our partners to do the on the ground work. But thinking about how amazing it is for my friends and family members to go to the farmer's market with their WIC voucher and double the portion for fruit and vegetables. It's not provided at every market because this is not a statewide initiative nor federal. It would be amazing if this policy was implemented in the Farm Bill, which you'll see in our demands if you check them out, because I did not want to bore y'all with all the policy, but we actually request that to be increased and also accepted on a blanket scale and not having to figure out when and how and which day you can use your vouchers when there's produce available.
It's amazing to see that your money can be doubled for fresh produce. That's so cool. I actually am in Tallahassee, and the Frenchtown Farmers Market does something similar where they double your access. Yeah, it's really cool to see.
Yeah, there's also a double of SNAP benefits, so that's exciting. I'm excited to hear that you're in Tallahassee. Would love to connect more with our Center for Agroecology out there at FAMU.
We'll be in touch. So we have another question in the chat from Diane, and they say, when did you say your membership would open up again? And is there a good reason to try and send people to your site given that they can't join yet?
Yeah, absolutely, Diane. Please visit the site. There's actually a waiting list that lets you know that we'll be opening membership soon. We're saying by the end of the year. We're not giving the exact season. We're actually voting on the process. Currently, we have a summer membership meeting coming up in July. And as I mentioned, it's 56 organizations. I don't know if I said that exactly, but we provide a democratic process and want to ensure everyone's voice is heard. And we move forward and with majority. So it is a good reason to visit the website. There's so many other resources there, more that I definitely did not have the time to share in the amazing projects that we're up to, lots of the media, but also that waiting list. Once we do open membership, that waiting list is actually on priority and will be potentially fast tracked in some type of way and not have to wait the entire process of as others will once membership is open. We'll already have your information and can reach out and keep letting you know first dibs on as soon as we open. So please reach out.
So sort of in the meantime, what is the best way to support the Alliance's mission, and what is the best way to do that in terms of people wanting to go ahead and join? And then, yeah, sort of in the meantime, what can we do?
Absolutely. In the meantime, support Black farmers. Definitely, as I mentioned before, check out our website, see if there's a member near you. They may have some type of membership or way that you can be involved, a volunteer opportunity. There's advocacy work happening all throughout. So definitely go to our site. There's a list of members. You can click directly onto their website. There's also a Black food map. If you are a farmer or provide food in a Black community in some type of way, if you're a co-op, a food hub, food aggregation, farm stand, all the things, you can go on our site and fill out a form that you're actually going to be populated on a map. This is the only Black food map that exists. There are other maybe lists or directories, but we're excited to grow that. And that's definitely in support in connecting our supply chains and understanding where people are and the produce that they have. So excited about that. But also in the meantime, I think it's always doing some individual work. I've been thrilled to reread The Collective Courage book by Dr. Jessica Gordon Nimhart, and it speaks to the history of cooperatives and how that history is Black, and we've been deeply ingrained in community and self-governance, and there's so many barriers that are preventing that right now. So maybe there's a co-op in your area. Check it out, see what type of ways you can be involved. All those things are opportunities to continue our mission together to move forward for food sovereignty.
Thank you so much for those resources.
Absolutely. I see more questions are coming in. I don't know how much time we have.
So we have a little bit more time. Let's go ahead and tackle this one. So it says, how do you contribute to the fund to reclaim land, and what can the public do for this?
Yeah, absolutely. On our website, you'll see where you can donate to the Alliance. And if there's something you want to donate to specifically, you can definitely put that in the item. Also info@blackfoodjustice.org if you want to feel a more direct way. We have our information financial wise available, but that's the Resource Commons, which we are calling our project, and it's led by our Resource Commons Council in case you need that information when you reach out.
Thank you. And also for clarification, did you say the Black food map is on your website?
Yes, on our homepage, just scroll all the way down to the bottom and you'll see food map and directory. And it actually has Karen Washington, Dara Cooper, and another Black food advocates on the picture. So you might recognize it there.
Nice. Okay, and so is there a community land trust within the Alliance?
Not yet. That's actually something we've been exploring. We've been learning and creating I won't say a directory, but a list and network of existing community land trusts just to learn from what they're working on. And now we've been exploring how it's individual state-based with restrictions and rights and whatnot. So the national model may be a little difficult, but we are going to figure out what's the best way. And it may not be the Alliance holding the land, which we have no, feelings either way over. We just want to be sure that it's removed off of the speculative market and that we ensure that it's forever stewarded by Black people. So we're excited to continue to develop that process, but individually we're working to support our members and collectively building our land base.
Okay. I'm just going to check really quickly if there's any more questions that we have for you in the chat. Let's see. Doesn't look like we have any more. So if anyone doesn't have any more questions, we're going to go ahead and go on our active break, and everyone will be back at 1:50 for the next speaker. Thank you so much, Dr. Jackson, for everything, your wonderful resources and your wonderful insight. Actually, we do have one more question. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay.
So has the Alliance ever thought about supporting breastfeeding as one of their first and very local foods that Black communities and families can be receiving?
Thank you so much for that question, Diane. I personally am an advocate for breastfeeding. I won't say the Alliance as we're focused on our food and land, but I do know that it is very important for mothers and babies to receive the best nutrition. So I would encourage, other people who are in the stage of breastfeeding to go ahead and look out for your farmer's market and have a conversation with your farmer. Like, hey, do you have open visits? How are you growing your food? Not in like an inquisitive, like I'm the health, agency, but definitely wanting to be curious about ways that people are growing their food. So we are supporting farmers and moving to more organic practices and not harming the environment as we're looking to reverse some climate mitigation and damage that's happening to ourselves. So I appreciate those questions.
Thank you for that. Okay. And I think that one was the last one. So everyone can reconvene here at 1:50 for Eastern time. And I think I don't know what time that is in Western time. Someone had asked. I'm not entirely sure, but we can get back to you on that. And then once again, thank you so much for everything and shedding light on food apartheid and giving us definitions to sort of think and reflect on. And we're very excited to see what happens with the Alliance in the future.
Well, thank you so much, Jada. Looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you.
Take care.